Welcome, Adam Nelson. Adam Nelson is a senior director of strategic projects at ZeroEyes. ZeroEyes specializes in AI-based weapons detection to prevent and mitigate gun-related violence. So, Adam, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a broad overview of the ZeroEyes technology and how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. First, Brandon, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and also always excited to talk about Zero Eyes and what we're doing. So, Zero Eyes was founded back in 2018 by a team of former Navy SEALs, and the CEO, Mike, he saw all of the gun violence that was happening across the country, and after one of the largest incidents that happened down in Florida, he said that enough's enough. Someone has to step up and try to do something, and so he reached out to some of his contacts in his network, some people who worked in technology, some of his, his fellow Navy SEALs. And he said, "Hey, I got this idea. We're going to figure out how to work with this and do something to help stop this horrible thing that's happening all over the country." And so they founded Zero Eyes. And through their experiments, they realized that there's the capability of using AI that can watch existing security camera feeds and be able to detect if there's an object in that feed that is a gun or not. And so object detection has existed for a while, and the technology was there. It was affordable, and they had the right people to come together to start building it. And that's where Zero Eye started back all the way back in 2018. And so since then, it's been an absolute wild ride. But what we're doing is we're building something that is going to help protect people against gun violence. And no one out there is doing anything for to deal with this issue. And we're incredibly proud and honored to be doing this and to have an answer, because it really hasn't been an answer with this horrible thing going on. So, but yeah, the company now is over 200 people strong. We mostly work out of Conshohocken in Pennsylvania, so a little bit outside of Philadelphia. And we have just an amazing team of experts in so many different areas and fields, and it's incredible what we're able to accomplish.
So, what types of companies or organizations does ZeroEyes work with?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of different organizations. Primarily, as you can imagine, the biggest client base we have are schools all across the country. So we're working with high schools, school districts, charter schools, colleges. We want to be in every school in America. I mean, that should be the default. We should be in every school in America using the existing security cameras that are already installed, so we can protect kids against someone who wants to expose a gun and do harm. We're also working with a lot of corporate clients, corporate buildings, apartment complexes, parking lots, anything where there's a lot of traffic that someone could potentially
Mhm.
pull out a firearm. That's where we're monitoring. So that's primarily where we're at. We also have a lot of government contracts in the works, things I can't necessarily speak about, but definitely
Yeah.
stuff that we're doing that's really exciting. And that's primarily who we're dealing with. Also working with churches across the country, places that need to be protected and need to have another layer of security to help deal with this issue.
So just this year in the fall, I think, Temple University in Philly became the first university in the region to deploy ZeroEyes gun detection. How did that partnership happen?
Yeah, I mean that's one I'm particularly proud of. Obviously, I'm from the area, and I actually took a few courses at Temple back
Oh,
in
that's
my
right.
day. So
Yeah.
definitely, I'm definitely proud about that one. I mean, really, what really it comes down to is that we've reached out to we're based here in Pennsylvania, and it only makes sense that we're connecting with our local schools, our local businesses, especially universities. And I think that a lot of people that work at Zero Eyes have either gone to Temple at some point in their past. And so we just leverage all of our resources to get in contact with the right people there. And we finally made the right connection. And Temple saw what we could do and said, yeah, we definitely want this. And Temple is a fantastic organization because they have one of the most renowned police forces in all of higher
Mm.
education. And so for them to kind of accept us and say, hey, we want this, we can see the value in this. It's just a huge badge of honor for us, and we're super proud of that. And so, yeah, so once they said, yeah, we want to do this, we worked tirelessly for months to get the system up and running on their platform, and we're on hundreds of cameras across their campus. And if you go online, you can search some amazing media that was put out once the project was finished. And we're incredibly proud to be working with Temple, to be protecting Temple with our technology, and for them to be working with us as a partner to help us make our technology better. They're so knowledgeable. They've seen so many things happen. I mean, they're in
Mhm.
one of the largest cities in the country.
Yeah.
So their knowledge and their feedback is invaluable to us. And so we're incredibly proud to be working with them and have our technology installed there.
So here's a question. I don't know if you can answer it. As a result of the deployment with Temple, has there been a decrease in gun violence in the area?
So there isn't a one-to-one correlation right now to our technology and gun violence going down. Obviously, we can only control what happens in front of the camera. Again, our technology is object detection, so that means an exposed gun has to be in front of a camera that we're monitoring. And we're not on every single camera, but we're on a vast majority of them. So as of now, we have not had any incidents with Temple on
Hmm.
campus, but obviously Philadelphia's a large city and a lot of stuff happens in and around the campus. So we don't want to catch her or something because we don't want something horrible to happen. But there's a high probability that if someone brings a gun out on campus, we're going to catch them and we're going to see that. So that's the whole point of our technology: alert first responders, get people on site, deal with the threat so that people don't get hurt, because that's what it's meant to do.
So you're the senior director of strategic projects at ZeroEyes. What types of projects do you lead?
Yeah. So I have a team of 19 people. That's
Oh,
project
wow.
managers and installation technicians. And our whole job is to get the technology installed full stop, right? We every time we sell our technology to a client, we gather their IT information, we build a relationship with them, and we,
Okay.
obviously provide our equipment. We get on site and we get everything installed. So I manage the entire process. I ensure that we have all the right resources, all the right people in the right places. And obviously, when we have a strategic partnership, I'm involved to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible and we get that technology up and running as soon as possible, because every minute that we're not monitoring a camera is a minute that someone could walk out in front of that camera with a gun, and we want to capture the bad guy. So
Mhm.
time is of the essence. We want to get out there. Our tagline for ZeroEyes is save time, save lives, and that also counts for when we're deploying the technology. So that's really my core responsibility, and obviously ensuring that we're getting things done in a timely manner so the company can be successful, and that we're moving forward in a positive direction to get on as many cameras as possible. So that's pretty much what I'm doing.
So when you say the right resources, what do you need from the organization to install this system? What do they have to have in order for you to implement the Zero Eyes platform?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So fundamentally, they have to have security cameras, right? If you don't have any security cameras, the technology can't do what it's meant to do. So they
So,
need to
so
have
you don't provide that technology at all. If
no,
they don't have
no.
cameras, they can't use the system.
Right. So we don't provide cameras, we don't install cameras. That's why our technology is so important, because we're leveraging existing security infrastructure. We don't need you to add more. You don't need to
Okay.
buy our cameras. We're going to leverage what you already have. Obviously, there's a limit. We can't use cameras that were installed in 1995, right? They got to be
Mhm.
more modern cameras. So fundamentally, they have to have a security camera infrastructure. Those cameras have to be somewhat modern. And what I mean by that, older than like 2015, they need to be accessible. And still being managed by the manufacturer. And then we just need access to their network, right? Because we install a piece of equipment that connects to the cameras as well as to the internet, and that's how we get our alerts back to our 24/7 monitoring center. That's how we actually dispatch first responders if there is a threat, as well as make sure that we're always connected to the cameras 24/7, and we're looking at every frame of every camera 24/7 without fail. And that's the power of the technology. It's what it's doing every single day.
Okay. And basically how the system works is it uses AI to identify security threats based on what it sees through the camera, and then it alerts authorities.
So yeah, so there's another step in there where we have a 24/7 monitoring center. It's called our ZOC, Zero Eyes Operations Center, and we have two of them. We have one here in Pennsylvania in Conshohocken, and we also have one in Hawaii, so that we have 24/7, 365 coverage at all times. There are multiple humans, a minimum of three, sitting at a computer looking at every image the AI sends to us. So every time the AI thinks it sees a gun, it sends that image to us, and we have a human verification process to say,
Mm.
yes, this is a threat. We're going to dispatch and call 911, or this is not a threat. This is a false positive. We're going to ignore this and put that image back into the AI model so that I can learn from this image.
Okay, so there's a human in the loop at all times. Every potential threat is reviewed by a human before an alert is sent out.
Exactly. Correct.
And how does that scale? So you're working with, I mean, you mentioned all different types of organizations. So I don't even know how many organizations are you working with now?
I
100?
mean, we're over
Hundreds?
200, 250 organizations that we're
Okay.
working with if you're breaking them down into individuals. So we have a lot of partners and a lot of people we're working with. It's
Yeah.
probably even more than that, honestly. But the way this scales is that as we add more cameras onto the platform, our technology is evolving. Our AI is getting smarter. It's recognizing the difference between what is not a weapon and what is a weapon.
Okay.
And so as we're adding more cameras to the platform, our AI models are becoming more efficient. They're becoming more sophisticated, and then our technology is just getting better. How do we better alert people? How do we make sure that the load of alerts coming through is better weighted against all the people in the operations center? And so there's just a lot of automation that's happening that's helping us go through this more efficiently. And then our AI is just getting better and better and better. We have, in my personal opinion, we have the best AI gun detection model in the world. Nobody has something better than us.
Okay.
And because of that, we have very few false positives when you're looking at the grand scale of all the cameras we have on the platform versus something someone could potentially put together right now using like images from the internet. Our AI model is so sophisticated that it's very, very accurate, and so we're not getting bombarded by false positives nonstop all the time. So that all of these things coming together is allowing us to scale, allowing us to put more cameras on the platform, and allowing our AI model to get more intelligent.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about competitors. Are there major competitors in this space, at least in this region? And can you talk about them?
Yeah, so this question comes up a lot with anybody that is asked about ZeroEyes, like, what's the competitive landscape look like
Yeah.
for this kind of technology? And there are competitors, there are companies that are doing the same thing, but the thing that I like to say is any company that's investing resources into dealing with this problem is doing something that's for the good of everyone else. And I think that's really what's more important than, oh yeah, this company can do it and this company can do it. It's just, hey, if we're all putting resources into helping add a layer of security to help protect against gun violence, that's a good thing. So I don't really see those. Me personally, I don't see them as competitors. I see them as partners, because at the end of the day,
Mm,
we're all trying to put something in that's going to help
yeah.
protect people and save lives. And I think that's way more important than saying, hey, yeah, they're a competitor, because we're all trying to do the same thing or try to help protect people. So that's what I like to say. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to do something that's going to benefit society, and I think that's what's important.
Do organizations talk about the fact that they're using Zero Eyes gun detection? So I read about the Temple partnership. What about a smaller organization that might be using Zero Eyes? And another question is, what is the smallest organization you work with? Are there actually very tiny companies that you work with? And do
Yeah.
they talk about it? Is it something that they're proud of? I imagine that they would want to advertise, or are you working with some companies that don't want to talk about this at all?
Yeah, no, this is a great question. So to answer the smallest organization, we work with a lot of churches all across the country, and so some of our smallest clients are just individual churches. Says, hey, we want this. This makes sense for where we live, and we want to protect our the people coming into our community. When it comes to whether people want to share that they have it installed, I think Temple's a great example. Temple is known for their security
Yeah.
infrastructure and the pride they have. So when they add new technology, they see that as a badge of pride. So they're more than open and more than willing to share that news, because they want people to know, hey, we're at the cutting edge of technology. We're at the cutting edge of security. We want people to know that. But there are organizations out there that don't want to alarm their community. They don't want their community to think that there is a problem, and so
Right.
they tend to choose to they opt out and say, hey, we're not going to make any kind of public statement. We're not going to put any PR out. We're going to obviously work with you, but we don't want to let people to think that there's an issue. And everyone just kind of comes from two different perspectives, and we are totally fine with both, obviously. So it really comes down to those individuals, their community, how they think their community is going to react. Now we have a full PR team that we allow every client to have access to, and it's up to them to interact with them and make decisions. But we never force a client one way or another to do that. It's always up to them. So we see it kind of a split, but more clients tend to lean towards, hey, I want to share this because this makes sense, and we want people to know that we take their protection seriously, and so they go ahead and release that information.
The team that's responsible for building and developing the ZeroEyes platform, is that part of your team of 19, or is that a separate team?
Yeah. So right now, no one on my team specifically develops the system, the AI, or the manager, or any of the components that makes it work.
Hmm.
We only install and maintain the actual technology for our clients. There's a whole nother team, our dev team, that encompasses obviously the programmers, the AI developers, the annotators, the people that build the AI model, and so they all work in tandem because they're so integral to one another. And they build the actual system and send out the upgrades and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges with implementing this system?
Absolutely. So really it comes down to every client's networking infrastructure is different. A lot of this is really relying on the accessibility of that network and the infrastructure the client's already set up. So if you're looking at a large school district that has, let's say has 20 schools across the district, their entire network may not communicate to one another. So you have to say, all right, well, then are we installing equipment in every building? Because that's the only way we can see the cameras. Are they all accessible from a single data center? And these are the kind of things we have to work through with every client to make sure that we're providing them the best solution and that, they're getting the protection that they paid for. So those are challenges that we have to deal with, is just figuring out what kind of environment we're walking into. And then there are a lot of locations that have cameras that are too old, right? So analog cameras or cameras that aren't using standard Ethernet cables to communicate. They're using old coaxial, like your old TV cable, for those who are old enough to remember that.
Yeah.
So those cameras, unfortunately, don't give the right output for us to ingest into our system. So we have to go and do a full audit of every client's camera infrastructure to ensure the cameras that they have are reliable, because we don't want to put cameras on a platform that aren't going to work. That would be that's bad for the people that we're trying to protect. So we want to make sure the cameras that we're monitoring are the right specifications, are modern enough to do what we need it to do. And what we'd like to do is that if we identify that a client has cameras that won't work, and let's say it's a large portion of their contract, we work with them to find a solution to that, whether it's redoing the contract, finding a camera partner to maybe install new cameras to replace those older cameras at a discount because we have partners, or a combination of those two things. And we really try to make sure that every single one of our clients is taken care of. They get what they need to protect their students, their staff, their clients, anyone who's engaging with their facilities, because that's what this is all about at the end of the day. So we're really proud of the fact that we go above and beyond to make sure that every client gets as much coverage as they can with what they need.
Can you talk about a particularly difficult implementation? If you can talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to, I want to make sure that I give a good example. Listen, I think what matters the most is that we're proud of every partner that we have. And I think every project is important. And there's a lot of individuals that we work with. And so sometimes, communicate, let me give you a good example. There are a lot of corporate entities that have IT teams that don't work out of the US. They work in other countries. And so if I were to say deployments that are difficult, it's when you have to deal with like third-party IT companies or IT departments that aren't necessarily physically in the building. That makes it really difficult because you're constantly always on a call with somebody who doesn't know. It's someone different every time. And the chain of communication gets broken down a lot because there isn't one person that is responsible for ensuring that there's not a project manager on the client's IT side to manage. And so those are definitely the most difficult projects because it lacks accountability. But because we're dealing with companies that have been around for so long, they're so big, of course you're going to have these entities that help manage their infrastructure. So those projects are always the most difficult versus like a local high school where the IT director works out of the high school and he's going to work with you the entire way through. You get the project done in a day versus a couple months where you're dealing with different people every time, trying to get networking done and firewall rules done. So those are definitely the most difficult. But we make sure that every project is done quickly and our client's fully satisfied at the end.
Let's talk about data. I imagine you have a lot of data. And is a lot of that data video footage and images from those videos? Any idea where and how it's stored? How do you manage that amount of data?
Yeah, so a lot of that data is constantly fed back into the AI algorithm. So there's a process in place to ensure that we don't get overloaded with too much information. We have a storage process that we use on the physical equipment that's physically there on site. The only thing that lives on the internet or on the cloud, again, all deeply encrypted, is the images the AI says, hey, I think there's a gun here. Those are the only images in which we store in another location. But again, it's all encrypted, and we have a termination policy after a few days or after a month or so. All that data is immediately deleted unless the client wants to keep it for any other reason. So we don't save anything outside of images the AI says that it thinks it sees there's a gun for obvious reasons, because that helps feedback into the AI, as well as we can give that to the client to show them how their facility is uniquely operating within our technology, and clients really like to see that and see what we pick up and see the objects that our AI sees and thinks are guns. For instance, in warehouses, you can imagine a lot of warehouse workers, they're using scanners, right? They got to scan, barcodes and things like that. And depending on the lighting and the angle, sometimes we pick those up, and those are obviously not guns, but the client likes to see that and say, okay, I can see the AI working and see the
Okay.
logic behind it, how it's picking these objects on that at that angle. It's kind of dark or whatever. You can tell it's not a gun. It's just a scanner, but it has the same kind of shape. So those are the things that we do. But we take that data privacy very seriously, and we don't save anything unless we absolutely have to.
Hmm.
And we have a very strict data deletion policy to ensure that we're not keeping anything we don't need after a certain amount of time.
That makes sense. Smart. So let's talk a little bit more about your role, Director of Strategic Projects. What's your approach and process for managing large-scale projects? Do you have a process? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think project management is one of the most interesting areas to work in at any company. It's
Yeah.
incredibly stressful. There's a lot of communication. You got to be really good and comfortable with communicating with people, especially people of all different backgrounds and communication styles. So we at ZeroEyes, we love the Scrum and the Sprint methodology, ensuring that we're always moving forward, and that we kind of treat ourselves like developers, right? We're not developers, but we treat ourselves that way because we need to always be moving forward. We always need to be getting cameras on the platform to keep people protected. So we kind of follow that structure. But really what it comes down to is communicating with the client, setting clear expectations, setting clear goals. So my methodology is that we need to build relationships with people, because the only way things are going to be able to get done is if that person wants to help you and wants to get this done along with you. So really what I stress, the way I operate, and the way I encourage my other project managers to operate, is to build personal relationships with our clients as best as you can. Right. Like,
Mm,
instead of reaching out via email, give that person a call. If they don't answer their phone, send them a text. A lot of people will answer text messages via emails because it's right there in their, or they might be stepped away from their computer. So it's really about building that personal relationship. And I encourage all my project managers, when they have really big projects, to physically go to the client site and engage with the client in person. When you
mhm.
take someone out to lunch, when you do something that's less formal, you build a relationship with that person that's more intimate than just saying, hey, can you please do ABC for me?
Right.
And that's been my methodology that really works, because we're doing something that is incredibly personal. We're trying to protect people from getting hurt. And so when we build that relationship with the client and build that personal connection, it just adds to what we're trying to do. And so that's really the approach that I take, and the approach I encourage my project managers to take. But from a larger perspective, we like the sprint and the scrum and all the components that go along with that, and that really helps us keep moving forward, because what we do is so unique. I know we're not shooting rockets in the space or landing rockets on pads in the middle of the water, but I relate us to SpaceX because we're doing something no one's ever done before. What we do is very difficult. We're installing a technology that never existed before. We're asking clients to do things that no other vendor has ever asked them to do with their network infrastructure or their security cameras. So it can be difficult. It can be hard to get through a lot of roadblocks. But if you can realize that and communicate that and build that connection with the client, you're going to have a better experience. And I think the client's going to be happier with the final result, because they feel like they were genuinely a part of the process, besides just being told to do X, Y, and Z every couple of days via an email. So that's kind of the approach I take. There's obviously a lot more granular stuff in there, but I think we do a really good job. I think my team is incredibly proud of the work they do.
I want to talk a little bit about your background and
Yeah,
career journey. So tell me about your journey from being a network administrator in the U.S. Army to your current role.
absolutely. So I I joined the Army right after high school. When I turned 19, I actually went to basic on my 19th birthday,
Wow.
and I served in the Army for 4 years active duty, and then I did 2 years of reserve time. But while I was in the Army, I was a 25 uniform, which is essentially the IT guy of the Army. So that's where I got really exposed to
Mhm.
IT, technology, networking, et cetera. And one of my jobs was network engineer, network manager while I was in the Army. And so when I got out of the Army, I moved to Philadelphia to go to school, and I went to Drexel for computer science. And then during that process, I eventually I met someone who worked at Wharton, and she said, "Hey, there's a job opening. I think you'd be perfect with your military background and how passionate you are about technology."
Mhm.
And I was able to get an interview, and I was able to get a job as an IT support specialist at Wharton, and that was an awesome opportunity. And that's where you and I met, which was fantastic.
Mhm.
I had a great time there. And then after working there for a few years, I wanted to look for my next career change, my next challenge, and I discovered a nonprofit for veterans to help them start and grow businesses. And I just absolutely fell in love with that concept. It's called Bunker Labs. And
Mm,
I just walked in. I said, "Hey, I really want to help here. I want to be a part of this. How can I be a part of this?" And
yeah.
I just came at the right time, and I got an opportunity there. And I worked there for a few years, and that's what really allowed me to learn about business, about entrepreneurship, and I could, I leveraged my IT skills to help entrepreneurs with their challenges, which was incredibly rewarding. And during my time there, that's where I actually met the founders of ZeroEyes in 2018 when they were starting up their business. And I absolutely fell in love with what they were trying to do. And as soon as I knew that they were looking to bring people on, I begged. I said, I want to be a part of this mission. I want to be a part of this team. How
Mhm.
can I help? And that's what led me to my position at ZeroEyes. And I've been incredibly thankful for that. And a little bit in there, I did my own entrepreneurial stuff. So I did my own IT consulting for a little while. I kind of stopped that after a little bit because that really wasn't where my passion was. And then I also did something that's more of a personal passion, as I ran a competitive esports company for a few years, running in-person and online tournaments for people that love playing competitive video games. And I really loved that. And that was just like a passion project for me. But obviously my commitment and passion for ZeroEyes is more important, and the impact that's going to have for me is more important. So I committed my full time to ZeroEyes, and I'm incredibly proud of that. So that's kind of been my journey. And I've been incredibly blessed for all of the opportunities to meet so many amazing people, just like you, Brandon. And I can't wait to see what happens in the future.
How do you think your military background influenced your approach to leadership and teamwork?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, me personally, I think the military is the best leadership program any individual can ever go through,
Hmm.
for a wide variety of reasons. And so, the military forces you to learn how to be a leader. You have to learn, because you're at some point in time in your career, you're going to be in a leadership position, and you need to
Right.
know how to handle yourself, how to communicate, and how to lead your team to success in whatever mission you have. And so, coming into civilian life, what I immediately recognized at 23, when I first started going to Drexel, the difference in my outlook on life versus everyone else that was in
Mm,
school with me at the time. And I said, wow, I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity to serve in the military, to learn what it really means to take certain things more serious than say other people would.
yeah.
So my approach really is, it ties back to communication. And everyone says this, and it kind of everyone kind of becomes numb to this, because like, okay, duh, yeah, everyone says that, but I can't communicate how important it is to take your time to communicate like a human being, and less like a corporate entity or a number on a piece of
Right.
paper. You really got to treat humans like humans, and recognize, like, hey, there's a reason why you're here, there's a reason why I'm here. We have to come together on that, and then push
Mhm.
forward on that reason, and communicate and share your ideas and share your reasoning. And leadership is a topic that you and I could talk 3 hours about. We can never get to the bottom of it, but that's really the thing that I've learned, is you have to communicate, and you have to communicate clearly. You have to state your intent clearly. And if someone doesn't agree with your leadership or doesn't agree with your direction, it's okay to tell them, it's like, hey, I know you don't agree, but this is why I'm doing this. And at
Mhm.
least giving them that reason hopefully can allow them to rally behind you and follow you through. Um, Again, there's so much more complexity here, but that's the outlook I've always taken, is how can I communicate what I'm trying to do as effectively as possible to inspire my team, and if I can't inspire them, at least give them enough justification for that decision, so they can follow along and say, okay, I know why we're doing this, even if I don't agree. And so that's something I really stress. And the only thing that I tie to my success now, with what I'm doing now, is I have amazing people that I work with every day that are incredibly professional, incredibly intelligent, but also are willing to communicate and have conversations and work together to find a solution that benefits everybody. And so I'm very fortunate with that. But you got to communicate. You have to over communicate. You have to have empathy. You have to actually meet with your people face to face, and discuss things with them, so that they understand where you're coming from. And that's really what, in my personal opinion, is going to lead you to success, from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, how would you say you helped your team members achieve their professional goals as a
Yeah.
mentor, as a leader?
Absolutely. So again, it's about building that connection, understanding what their passion is, where they want to go with their
Mhm.
career, and then you find ways to help them get there. I think, for me, in leadership, your number one goal as a leader in leadership is for people to grow in their career more than anything. If you're looking from a corporate entity, your number one job is to help them get to the next step, whether that's a position above yours or another department or another company. That's your number one job.
Mhm.
So what I try to do is, once I understand where my employees want to go, I actively work with them to find ways to improve whatever skills they want to improve, get whatever courses they want to get, or get connected with any departments they want to get connected to. I encourage them and set goals with them to get to that next level so they can do those things they want to do. And that's what I do that with every single employee, and I don't change that process, whether they're a high ranking executive or they're an entry level position. It's where do you want to go? What are the steps you need to take to get there? And what
Mhm.
resources can I go get to give you to get to that next step? And that's the approach I take.
What kind of resources or tools can you recommend for someone who's interested in learning about AI and security?
Yeah, I mean, man, there's so many things out there that you can use. At ZeroEyes, we use a website called IT Pro TV. That's a very technical training site. It's amazing. It does cost a little bit, but man, their courses are so good and they're consistently updated. There's a lot of websites out there that do IT training through video courses, but IT Pro TV is exceptional, and I highly recommend that website. They just do such a great job with their presentation, and a couple of my technical people have watched courses on that website and then
Mm,
gone to take an exam and passed immediately. And all they did was watch those videos and study the videos. So that just tells you the credibility that site has. I also read a couple of blogs. There's one that's super easy. It's free to sign up. It's called Techpresso, like an espresso, but Techpresso. That's all AI technology. The summary AI is really kind of around language models, so especially Chat GPT. So the summary.ai, you check that website out,
mm,
gives you a lot of really cool tips and tricks and updates. But really, YouTube is the greatest source of education you can find when it comes to AI. Now, obviously, you got to sift
for
through some of
everything.
the
I
yeah
think for
for
everything.
everything. Yeah, I mean it's great. So YouTube is the number one, but yeah, you got to obviously sift through some stuff that isn't necessarily
Yeah.
relevant. But YouTube is the best resource for keeping up to date.
What are you particularly excited about in terms of AI and the future of AI? Is there anything that jumps out as particularly exciting for you?
Yeah, I think people underestimate how AI is going to help make everyone's lives infinitely better. There's a lot of fear out there, and rightfully so, about how other AIs could potentially take jobs away or impact the economy in a negative way. But I think the AI is going to make everyone's lives so much better, so much easier. It's going to solve so many problems that are not solved right now. I
Mhm.
think our lives are going to dramatically change in the next 12, 20 years, but for the better. I don't have a doom and gloom outlook. I think it's
Yeah.
really going to impact us. If I were to pick one thing, I think it's just going to really help with the biggest issues people have, whether it comes from getting healthcare, getting food, or getting access to certain things. I think AI is going to absolutely open the door for people to get access to those things in a way that has never been there before, because AI is going to fix a lot of problems like immediately,
Mhm.
and I'm really excited for that. And not only is it going to make the world safer, it's going to help protect against things like gun violence and other things that happen around the world. And I think that's really important. And it's going to make a big impact.
What's your vision for ZeroEyes for the next 5 to 10 years?
I think ZeroEyes is going to be as ubiquitous as smoke detectors. I think that's really, really going to happen. I think as we work with more political leaders and more states across the United States, I think we're going to see an acceptance rate that's going to increase significantly. Where if you have a security camera, ZeroEyes is going to be on it. Our CEO Mike Leif always says, "What is the mission of ZeroEyes?" And it's when someone says, how do we protect against gun violence? The answer is always ZeroEyes. Like that's what people say every single time. And I think we're definitely going to be that company and be that name. And that's where I see us going. And I obviously I don't know how ZeroEyes is going to evolve
Yeah.
internally and what we're going to do, but I can imagine that we will absolutely find ways to get people our technology even faster and easier.
Mhm.
Whatever that looks like, I don't know, but we are definitely going to find innovative ways to get uh, you know AI gun detection at more locations as fast and as cheaply as possible. And I'm really excited for that. I think that's where we're going to go.
Great. That was fantastic.
Yeah, no worries. I'm excited. This is great. I appreciate you reaching out, and I hope your podcast blows up. I think it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. It's so interesting. Like I learned so much just in the preparation, like doing like a
Yeah,
little bit of a deep dive on the person and in the company. And so it's great.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So all right. Thanks a lot. Have a
All right,
good
buddy.
weekend.
You too, man. I appreciate it. I'll see you
All right.
later.
Take care.
All right, bye bye.